Okay, so when you want to create a new Spring Web workspace, there are a few ways to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go through both ways. You can pick whichever is comfortable for you, up to you. Okay, so I'll do the Bootstrap style first, which is easier. There's a Boot framework. So what you do is you right click and you say New. You have 3 divisions, right? If you want to do a traditional one, you go by the legacy project. But I want to do the latest framework, so I'm just going to pick Spring Startup Project. Okay. So what happens is you got to finalize your class organization or your package. That's the first thing you got to do. So you want to call your application. So this is your simple layering demo. So you want to call this as simple. Is that fine? So let's see. And then here is your packaging structure. So you can keep it simple as edu.iss. Okay, so this is good enough. You want to be very specific, you can say edu.nus.iss.team4.team whatever, then .ims, then your packaging. Okay, so it's completely up to you. So this is a very simple Spring Boot project demo, so I'm just keeping the same thing. So you can see that the naming signs for the packages is the same as group. So I'm going to change this as well. ISS. I won't keep it as demo, I'll keep it as simple so that it is clean to differentiate. Okay. So on your next page, Spring Boot is interesting because it allows you to pick any version that you want. Okay. And then you can also add in as many plugins as you want. Spring Boot comes in as a lot of plugins. So I would recommend choose the stable ones, 1.59 or 1.47. So let's stick to 1.59, which is the most stable one. The other ones are snapshots and milestones, so please don't pick them. Okay? 1 or 2 of the libraries could be broken, so I'm just going with a safe bet, which is 1.5. And you can see you can actually get in your cloud things inside, okay, and do a lot of other stuff. But what I need is the code. Okay, so I'm going to take the code. I may need validation. I may need session management. Okay. I'm not very keen on transaction settings now, so maybe I want security. So I check in the security as well. The IO group, if I need any batch processing or integration, I need to pick a lot from here. But in this case, I'll just use this Java mail, the simple mailing example. So I'm just picking the mail from the IO group. Okay, so code is done. I'm not picking anything from the cloud. IO is done. I'm not using any big data, so I'm not bothered about this big data set. Okay, but when you're using big data, you just have to use those correct plugins. That's it. I'm not doing any DevOps. I'll teach you what is DevOps. Very simple introduction I'll give you. But if you're not using DevOps, don't bother about this. Okay. So if you want to do a cloud launch, the container is called Pivotal in this case. Okay. So that's this part. I'm not using that. We'll go to SQL. You see you have JPA. You can have MySQL. If you're very keen, you can also pick Hibernate Field. Okay. No harm if you're using the underlying as Hibernate framework because that's a bit more extra than what is being offered by the plain JPA, so you can use that. So these are my selections that I do for my data portion. Okay. So that's it. I come to the web. I need the basic web, so I'm going to get that selected. Okay. And I'm not using social media. If you want Facebook, Twitter, you can link it here, but I'm not using it. Okay? And you want any template engines like FreeMarker and all, you can use that. But I'm using SiteMesh, so I'm okay. I'm going to just add on to whatever, because I didn't want to do one more template. I thought SiteMesh will work for all your projects, so we just stick on to SiteMesh. Okay? You can just pick other frameworks exactly like SiteMesh. There will be one initial configuration and then how you code it. Okay? You are keen to use Bootstrap or any Java server, a JavaScript based library, please feel free to use as well. No problem on that. Okay. So this is the web part. If I'm using my repositories and RESTful web services, I got to check in the web services. And if I want to use my mobile extensions, I use mobile. But right now I'm going to keep it simple. Okay. And one of you wanted me to show how WebSocket works, so I'm going to use that as well in my template. So I don't know, you're coming and asking me. I'll do a very small session tomorrow, a simple introduction. I wish I had another 5 days, then I can really do more here, but unfortunately we got a timeout and then they are going to kick me out next Wednesday, right? So this is what we can practically do, though I know you're interested and all that. We'll just do a very simple demo and that's it. Okay. So these are the libraries I'm going to use. I just selected all that. Okay. So I'm going to move on. So you can see it is actually building the grammar based on whatever is my selection. So this is done dynamically for me. and it always gets all the zip file from the Spring IO directly. So this is like building your POM file. Basically, that's all it's trying to do. Okay? So there are other options, like you can use different build tools. Okay? And then there is a key thing that I missed out when I was demonstrating. You got to say whether it's a Java project or a web project. Okay? The jar file and the war file, that's a key selection. I missed it because the default is jar. Okay? Then it becomes a Java project. You won't be able to run. You remember the J, right? You want to glue. So just make sure that you pick the var file. That's something that's tricky. And if you don't want it to be called a snapshot, you can just say v1.0, up to you. Okay? But you're still trying, so I would prefer snapshot. So these are the key things that you do as selection. And then you can see that it gets generated. And it takes a bit of time because it's going to build from scratch, get all your libraries inside. But you can see it very cleanly puts all the folder structure that you need. Okay? So it has a main where all your Java code is going to reside. So your Java folder will have all the packaging structure that you have initially created. And this resources is going to hold your property files, which we may use soon. Okay? And then there will be a very simple example test class as well for you to try. We will write more when we have time. I'll teach you how to do that. It's quite straightforward. And then on the web portion, there will be a web folder. Where is it gone? Where is my web missing? There should be a web app here. Okay, let me wait. So normally if you look into cats, you can see that in the source, in the main, I have this web app. So that fellow is missing, so let me wait if he creates. Otherwise, I can simply create a folder, put my things inside. Okay, not a big deal. Okay, so this is how it gets created. So allow it for a little while. So let it do its work. Okay. Then we go back and see what's inside the POM. So if you open the POM file, you can see that based on your selection, it has already put in your basic framework, which is Spring. It's using version, oh, I thought we picked 1.5.9, right? But I think it is building from 7 and then changing it. Okay. So you can see that it is extending all your selection here. Do you see that? Okay. So validation, security, WebSocket, everything that you picked up has come here, including your database things like HBase, MySQL connector, everything online for you. And then it uses whatever is compatible so that you don't have to worry about the numbers, tweak the POM file and all. This is good, but you may need your JSTL and web container tags alone from your, because you want to use JSP sometimes. Okay? I mean JSTL sometimes. So what I'm going to do is I will probably pull the JSTL tags from the workspace. Okay? So I think mine is inside the GitHub, or I can even pull it from the online. Okay? So everything that I need is already built in. So additional to even the testing framework, I just need my JSTL and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to take, say, caps and then pick them from there, or use one of my end-to-end layering demo and then pick whatever I want from there. Okay. So we have SA45, and then in that I have this end-to-end layering, which we tried last day before. Okay, and then all this is done for me, this JSTL, the site mesh, and maybe the Java web container. These are the three things I may need in case I need to resolve any additional servlets that I may want to code in and so on. Okay. So I'm just copying these dependencies back here, just in case I want to play with any of them. Okay. So then I'm done. Okay. So that's all I need. Let us see if you have any problems in the compilation. So it should give me, oh, it already has because the projects are not up to date. Let me check. Oh yeah, I didn't do the version, yes. So this JSTL version, this site mesh version, these things are not specified. So is there a property? Yeah, it is here. So I got to include those properties as well. Okay. So what I need is JSTL, site mesh, and web version. Yeah, right, this should do. So copying that also should not give me any errors. Confusion. Yeah. Nice. So is the errors gone? Yeah. Okay, so that way it's clean. Okay. So Yeah, so you see that there is no problems. Always have the problems tab and check if your compilation units are okay. Otherwise, no point proceeding. So now what we will do, we'll start writing the repository classes. Okay, so let's do the packaging first. Okay, you can see it's already giving me a very simple initializer. Okay? And what I may need to do is just make this a little more complex because I want it to be on the web. Okay? So you remember we had a standard initialization class that I discussed. We're going to move that. Okay? So I'll show you how to do that. And we may want to do property settings inside the resources. That also I'll teach you how to do it. So now let's get the packaging straight. There are two styles of packaging. You can package by component or you can package by use case. Completely up to you. Okay? Say for example, we are dealing with student and staff use case here. There are two styles, right? I will show you how the packaging will work. See, basically for every use case, you will need an init once for your project. Okay. Then for each of your use case, you will have controller. Then you will have service. You can simply use small pack because it's package. Okay. Services. Then you will have repository. Or if you have a DAO, then you have DAO plus repository. Okay, let's keep it simple here. Repository. Okay, what else you need? What other packages you need? Validator. Okay, you may need util. Right, these are your packaging structure. What you can do is you can have your packaging structure like this. The font is very bad, right? Let us increase it. 18 is readable. This is your packaging structure. So you can either package it based on components. This is the normal style. The microservices style is like this. You will have one Unix package for your whole application. Then you will have one package called a student. Anything related to student goes here. And then you have one which is staff. Okay. So inside the student, for example, you will have one controller class, one validator class, okay, then one repository. That is also possible, whichever is your preference. Okay. So if you want to see how this sample is done, look at Pet Clinic, the example here. Okay. So if you look into this packaging, there is this pet clinic called owner, and the owner will have a controller, a repository, a model class, and anything that is related to it. Okay. So this is the microservices style. You can break it apart and then make them scalable. That's the idea. Okay. So I don't want to differentiate them because microservice again is not a silver bullet. Not every problem needs a microservices solution. So see what your team is comfortable and pick any way you want. I'm fine with that. Okay. So if you want to separate your work based on entity, do separate packaging, that's fine. Or if you want to go by controllers, one person do controllers, that's up to you, your comfort zone. Okay. So I'm going to use this style because that's easier for me to teach. So I'm going to show you this style first. Okay. So let's get the packaging done. So I go back to the simple. Okay. You already have the existing package. You're going to say new package dot init. So I put my configuration here. Some people like to call it as configuration. Whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. It all means the same. Then there is another package, new. Oh, where's my package? I really soon need glasses. Okay, so simple dot controllers. I put all the controllers here. Okay. Then I will use a validator for all the validator class, which I'm going to teach you later. Okay, so this is your server-side validation, and then you will need a service package. So that's going to have your manager and business logic. So I'm going to just say service. Okay. And then there's another package which is for the repository. We'll start with the repository and then we'll go on. Okay. So here dot repository. Okay. So this is how the packaging structure is done for your project. Okay. This is all fine. The first thing you need to settle is your init classes. Okay. So you see, what basically happens is you've got to go and write more annotations like enable MVC and all that. Okay. Just so in case we are productive, what I'll do is I'll bring in from the cats and then modify the things that I need to, so that way it's easy for you. Okay. So I'm going to take the cats. Okay. I'm going to take the init package. These are the two classes I'm going to take. Okay. So I'll say copy and then bring them into my configuration here. Okay. So you see that I have this initializer, and this initializer is a simple class that initializes my servlet container. Okay. I can also still use my Spring Boot initializer if I want, but it's up to us, right? So I can simply say Spring Boot initializer here as well. Okay. I extends Spring Boot initializer, okay. And then Control Shift O to bring in the libraries. So it asks me to pick up which one I want, okay, context web or web support. Okay. I'm going to pick up from the context web. Okay, so I think that's a different signature. Let's say that's gone now. Okay, so I got to pick the other one. They changed the deprecated. It got deprecated. So in such a case, I don't need a lot of other configurations. Okay. But the thing is, you can't do all your internationalization this way. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just leave it like that, so that I don't have to tweak a lot. Okay, just say Control Z, Control Z. Just leave it like that. Okay, so this is good enough for us. What happens to my web config? There is one little trick you got to do in your initializer. See, the name that you are trying to connect, this class app.conf, is exactly the name of your second file. They should match, case sensitive. Okay? That's the only thing you got to worry about. But if you want to use the same structure as your cats, don't bother. It's all wired properly. Just copy over. Now, what I have to change here is my base package. Okay. So what I called my application as, I've just called it as sg.edu.iss.simple. Okay. So this is one key thing that I got to do. That's fine. Then I have application properties and messages. I don't have them in my project space here. Right? So I'm going to bring it back from cats as well, so that it's easy for me to modify. Okay. And then the i18en folder. So I just copy it. I bring it back here. You can see there's already some existing ones. I can simply override them. Oh, I thought I did copy. Yeah. Okay. So this is my property file. Okay. So here I declare what are my sub messages. That's why I say folder AAG messages. My driver is this. You want to call this simple. Okay. So that you can differentiate root and password. And again, sg.edu.simple. Did you call it as model or entity? Let's check. Oh, we don't have one. Can we call this as model? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just add one more, which is for your entity class. Okay. You can either call it as entity or model. Since we have always been using that model word, I'm going to continue that. Okay. So this is the application properties. It's done. Now coming back to this configuration, I've called it as simple.repository, right? sg. Is the packaging right? This is where my repository is going to be. So this is where JPA is going to go and check for all the persistence options. Okay, that's all it is. This is fine. And then I'm calling back all the properties. So this db.driver basically comes from my application configuration file here. Okay. So they have to exactly match this. There's a few checks that you got to do. You see, you called it as db driver here. It's called exactly as db driver. Okay. Sorry, we were in the top of the account, right? So this is the db driver password, all the variables exactly the same way. And one style in Java is when you want to create a constant, it's always all caps followed by underscore. So that's why I'm making them as final so that it's constant. Okay. Just one copy is enough. I'm creating them as constant files. Or you can simply say get property and then read them from the files too. That's perfectly okay. But I try to keep it simple here. So I'm just using this in my data source. I'm using this in my factory class. Yeah, I'm using this in my Hibernate properties. And I'm setting the transaction manager to be JPA. Okay. So this will help me to inject transactions anywhere I want. Then I'm going to say all the resources will come from message.source.basename. Okay. That's the first thing that I've said here, message.source.basename. So I wired it back. So that's also done. Then I'm going to say the JSP pages are going to come from /webin/views, and all the extension is going to be .jsp. Okay. The benefit is I don't have to say .jsp in my controllers again. I just give the JSP name, it comes in. Okay. So the framework takes care of the prefix and suffix for me. And then I can put in my image files, CSS and JS, and then all the others are default. Okay. So this is all it's done. So one thing I have to do is I just remove the ones that are generated from me because they don't suit the full facilities that I want to use. So I'm going to just delete them. And I'm keeping the ones that I've just created from the CAD style. Okay, so this is all wired and set. Now what is not actually complete is your web app. Okay, so you can go into the main and see there is an empty web app here. Okay, so this fellow is not fully structured. What are the things I need inside the web app? I need a views in the webin. Okay, I need images, I need CSS files, and I need JS. So what I can do is I can bring it up from CADs as well. So all I need is this CSS views and all that. Okay. So this one also has the decorator, so it's okay. I can just pull the whole thing inside, okay. And then I can change the style sheet if I want. Okay. So what I can do is I can select these things from CADs, bring it into my web application. Okay. And then what I do is I just remove the views because this JSP pages are from CAD's application, so I don't want any of them. I'm going to delete it. Okay. So I have a structure in place, as you can see. This is the web. Oh, where did I miss it? I don't know. I think I deleted everything. Okay. Control Z. So we had the web app, we had the files. Okay, so all I need to do is only delete the JSP files, not everything. Okay. So make sure I only select that and say yes. Okay. So here I'm going to fill in applications for mine. What you can do is you can go and change the style sheet. You can change your images so that you have a different header, footer. All that you can play with your team's style sheet. Okay, that's fine. You have any additional? I'm going to teach you simple jQuery settings. But if you want to use Bootstrap or any other additional JavaScripts, you can put it inside there. Okay. So it always exists. And this is the standard decorator framework I'm using. I'm not going to change that. So there's a standard header. So you can see it's a simple JSP page, and you can change that. Right now, I'm just using, I'm printing my current user on the top of the page, always in the CADs. Okay. So I've not come to that place yet, so I'm just removing it. Okay. So every time I log in, you can see who has logged in. Dilbert has logged in, Catbird has logged in. So you try to keep your current user on the session data. So that's what I'm using here, and I'm printing it. But what I'll do is I'll just keep it simple. There is a, maybe you can say that this is your simple app. This is what you have in your header. Okay. And then you can have a fancy menu. As of now, the menu is too complicated. Okay, so I'll just have a logout, and I'll have one more URL for now, which is going to say, maybe I hard code what I want. I have too many URLs now, right? So I'll just take one. Then I'll remove logout, let it be there, but we will fix it later. So CURL and Spring URL are just the same, but it's just the two different libraries. Okay, so I'm going to say, first thing is I want to do an admin, and I want to use the student, right? Let's try student use case, and I'm going to have a list to list all the records. That's the simplest I'm trying to show you. Okay? So the student list is going to come from this slist URL, so use the slist URL, and then that's it. Okay, so if you want message, you can bring the message, but what I'll do is I'll keep it as hard-coded one later, otherwise we can bring it from FMT as well. So this is your listing page. So I'll have a menu that has got one URL that says listing page. That's all is there inside my menu. Okay. Then what is in my layout? My layout is the whole page. It has got header on the top, then my content, and then finally some footer information. It's not SA42, it's 45 now. Okay. This is 2017. Okay. So I changed my layout. That's it. Okay. So this is done. So the next job is to create a database file. Where do you create it? First on the model class, then you extend it into the repository. Okay. So let's keep it simple, the same kind of student, because it's easy. We have been using that a lot. You all know what to do with that. Okay. So I'm going to create a class. Or do you want to have something funny like heroes or user? What's your preference? No preference, just get it done. You want to go and have lunch. Stop killing us with code. So I'll keep it simple, which is student. Okay. We'll use private integer ID. Okay. And then we'll say private string name and private string nickname. What else we wanted? Private. What else you needed here? One more field. Course. Okay. The simplest one, right? So that's okay. When you want to make it into an entity class, what is the first rule? No argument constructor. Okay. So let's get that done. Source, generate a no argument constructor. So that's the rule number 1. Oh, come on, even this is getting hungry. So this is your no argument constructor. Then you can have a full constructor in case you want to create something. Okay. So you can just say all fields become your constructor. Okay. Then you have your getter setters, equals, and toString. So all these 3 things that you need. Okay. I need my getter setters for all attributes. I need my equals method. How many times I'm doing this, right? Never mind. Okay. So I compare an ID, they are equal student according to me. Okay. So then I say source toString to print it. Fair enough. Okay. So this object is created. Now you're going to help me annotate this class. What am I going to do? So let's have a database open first. Okay. So what are the annotations that you need? The first annotation is yeah, brilliant. Okay. So entity. Okay. So you just make sure that you pick it up from JPA, not from Hibernate. It's as confused as I am. So while this gets loaded, we'll see if I have an exact table like that. In that case, I'll use that database. SA45 demo has got student, has got all the 4 that we have just created. So this is fair enough, right? So all I need to do is go back to my application properties and say, we call it as SA45 demo all small, SA45 demo. So this is easier. So I don't have to do the data things and then bore you. Okay? So I'm assuming the data is already available. So first tag is entity tag. I got to make sure I pick it up from the entity and not from the Hibernate. Okay. So make sure you pick it up from the JavaX persistence. Then what do you need? Yes, brilliant. Okay. So table. Oh no. Table. Okay. And you got to say what table it is. Name is equal to. I think it's an all student, right? Not very difficult to remember. So this is your primary key. So I say ID. Okay. And of course it's going to complain, so I'm going to say oh my god. Okay. So this is ID, and I have exactly called it as a small ID here, but it is case sensitive. Okay. That's fine. I'm just going to go ahead because it's exactly the same thing here as well. Okay. So I don't need to map anything else because the column name and the attribute name are exactly the same, so nothing else is needed. But actually I can do an auto generation on this, but I'll take it up in the next run. I don't want to do everything gung-ho. So you have to say auto increment type is generated. You remember we discussed a few types, right? So we can come back and try it here. So this is the class that is mapped. So entity is done. The next thing I need is a repository. So I'm going to call this class as new interface. It's not a class, okay? Student repo. Okay. So here is where it gets interesting. So if you look at the cats, right, whatever is the existing repositories are all inside here, and all of them are just bunch of interfaces. Okay? So let's take, for example, the user role. You can see that's an interface. Okay? And I don't need anything inside for me to use, except I have to say extends JPA repository, what kind of data type, and what is the primary key data type. Okay? So if I have to go by the same syntax, I should say extends, okay, JPA repository. Okay. The class is going to be student class, okay, and the ID is going to be, what did we say as ID? Yeah, integer. Okay. So just put this as but this is a primitive type, so I got to keep it as integer. Okay. So Control Shift A so that I get these right things imported. So my data layer is done. That's all. Okay. So the next thing is for you to write a controller to see whether it works. Okay. So what is the syntax card you need to know minimally to understand controller? Let's take admin because this is an admin use case. So I'm going to create a controller. Okay. The things that I need here is the request mapping and the controller. Then of course this one I'll take it in the second round. This is the business manager classes. I'll take it in the second round. First thing, I'll directly use my repository inside and then show you how it works. Okay. So I will use a very simple method. I'm going to call it as list, and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay. So that's my intention here. So if you want syntax card, that's an example there. So I'm going to come back to my controller. I will call this controller as new. Okay. You can simply have it as a class because I don't think we have a special. Let me check. Maybe there is other. Inside the Spring, because we don't know, they keep improving a lot. Okay, we only have projects, right? So we don't have a class. So all you have to do is just say new class. Okay. This is by role admin. The entity is called student, okay, controller. As simple as that. Okay. So the first thing I need to annotate, you can pick it up from here because it's not very tricky. You can just change the path as you wish. Okay. So the first thing I need is a controller tag, which I've already done, and then I'm going to call this path as admin/student. It's done. Okay. The next thing is to put in a controller method here, and it's good to return the model and view. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the list mapping and then show you how it changes here. Okay. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this as student/list. I'm going to do it from the URL, so it's a GET request. And then I'm going to create a model and view. Okay, so I'm going to attach it to a page which I have not decided what it is. Okay, so in my case it is called a student-list. It's a JSP that I'm going to create. It's going to give me a list of students which I will collect it from my service class. Okay, we have not done service, but instead we will directly do repository. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to say @ let me check the syntax. I think it is repository, but I got to be sure. So what I'll do is I'll go into the service class and then check the repository. It's just repository, and then AutoWired should do the trick, but let me check. Say let's do any in the service method. There is this service, and there is this department service. Okay. So this is the interface, this is the implementation. So resource and then the repository. That's all I need. Okay. So I come back to this controller that I'm trying to create here. Just say resource. I don't know what I did. I have to go back and uninstall my Spring and then do it again. Okay. So I think I've done some funny thing there. Okay. So student, the interface class, right? Okay, student repository. Okay. Then call this as S repo. Okay. So that's all you have to do, nothing more. Okay. So the moment you have done this, it's already wired. That's the beauty of annotation. So you can start calling it and then use any of your standard methods here. So what I'm going to do is this is created. So S repo dot you can see that it's going to give me a standard set of methods. Find all will give me a list of students. Okay. So I'm going to use that, and you can see that it is not casted well. So what I'll do is I'll change this to array list maybe, because once I decided to cast, it can be anything. Okay. So I'll make sure it comes in as an object. I'm going to cast this as an array list. Okay. And then I'm done. Why is the student complaining? I thought it was in. No, okay. So I make a student list. Okay, and then I call this as student list as well. Okay. And then I got to print this inside my JSP page. Okay. So you want to call this as student list. Actually, there's okay, I'll show you something else. Okay. See, if you want to rename all the variables and not do a stupid mistake just like what I did now, select this, re-click, refactor, rename. So you can see that it changes all the occurrences. You type it in one place, otherwise it's boring, not productive. Is that okay? You can select anything, and immediately you can see it pulls all the other instances. You refactor this, everything else gets refactored. That's a sensible thing to do, right? Okay, so we have done that. Why is it still yelling at me? I still have department, then it's wrong. This is the problem with copy paste. I should have actually typed it on. That would have been much easier. It's just that I didn't want to go back and forth for the view model. So I have to create a JSP page which is a student list. Okay, so let's go and do that. I come here to view, webin/view. Oh, this is the cat's. Lucky I didn't override it. So I come back to my source, main, web app. Okay. So here inside, I'm going to say new JSP file. So it's inside the web usually. So scroll down, go to web, you can pick JSP from there. Okay. And then I'm going to call this JSP as student list JSP. Exactly the same case. So I just copy paste so that I don't make a mistake. Okay. So this is the page. Actually, you can use struts tag. I think most of my listing I would have used struts tag here. Okay, you can see that. You can simply use the C for each, which would to print your listing. Or alternatively, what you can do is you can use a spring tag and then use your spring message and all that. Okay? So what we need is a very simple listing. So what I'm going to do is just use the path and then print it inside your request scope. Okay? So the same thing, table, C for each, and then it runs. Okay. So can we just stop for lunch, because otherwise I'll be doing typing, which I enjoy doing it, by the way, because it helps me. I don't think much when I do my JSP pages, you see, so I like it. So I'll do this at finishing, and then we do execution after we come back, okay, because it's almost lunchtime. Let's stop here. Okay. So after lunch, can we continue at 1:30, guys? So I finish this demo, then I show you how to write a manager layer, then the end-to-end layer is done. Then we go back and read more syntax cards. There are a few miscellaneous things I got to teach you. I'll try to do it tomorrow. Okay? Like sockets, security, batch files, okay? And any other thing that you're interested, you try to drop by a main email. If I can fit in the topic, I'll try to cover it for you. Okay? I'm definitely planning for security WebSockets. Is there anything else you'd like to add on? Just let me know. If it is tangential, I'll try to keep it as. So we stop here, we come back, we finish this JSP and continue. Do the typing, then we restart again. Do you have any questions so far?